When older millennials are asked about classic Mega Man games, 2 is often mentioned as the pinnacle, though I've heard Mega Man 3 has its share of die-hard promoters as well. But what about the original? It never gets spoken of in quite the same light, does it? We acknowledge that it exists, that it got the franchise started, but that's about it. There's always been some off-putting vibes attached to it, perhaps a mark of a small, inexperienced development team trying something new for the first time. What worked? What was expanded? And what simply had to be changed? Good to see you, gamers. It's Shep from Gaming Introspection, and we're going way back to 1987 to see how well the original NES Mega Man holds up. Thanks for joining me. Get comfy and enjoy the nostalgia trip. We need to start here. That's just a fact. Now, if you're younger than 30, you won't get this. But back in pre-internet days, there were these images adorned on rectangular cardboard boxes in electronic stores for kids to scan their eyeballs with and decide whether they wanted to add one of them as their newest game or not. It was important stuff, no lie. But wow, this is... well, it's something, isn't it? It's well known how the Japanese development team criticized this abomination as being a huge reason for Mega Man's low sales in the West. Apparently, the American branch of Capcom gave some poor schmuck 6 hours to design this. And guess what? The game didn't even crack the 1 million mark in sales, in stark contrast to its sequel's success. It's no wonder! I mean, who would want to buy this based on the cover art? Mega Man is supposed to be a robot resembling an energetic youth with an arm cannon, not a 40-something-year-old guy with no neck, in a rubber suit, asymmetrical legs, and an oversized kid's water pistol. This hero looks like he's either a cowardly wimp who's scared of his own shadow, or an out-of-shape dad in a cosplay suit doing a cringe shuffle dance. Ooh, ooh yeah, ooh, ooh, ooh yeah. The setting is a hodgepodge of futuristic purple cities with random explosions in the backgrounds. And can someone tell me why there is a neon tropical paradise sprouting up from behind these buildings? Forget palm trees, there's not a tree of any kind to be seen in the game. Bomb Man stage is as close as we get to anything sprouting out from the... oh shoot. I guess I'm wrong. There's the palm trees, freezing to death in Antarctica! Adding to the stupidity, the image itself is so small in comparison with the total area. They instead prioritize these boring corporate logos, surrounding it in every direction. Oh yeah, gotta flaunt that 1 megabit memory and the high definition graphics. Oh, that's a smart call there. I mean, this is so high res. And then there's the red fluorescent grid in the background to make it even more radical but confusing. The game's title is just an afterthought, squished up at the top as if it doesn't even matter. It is a failure in every possible way. Oh, hey, if this is entertaining thus far, feel free to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Back to the box art though. You may be interested to know that the Japanese version was a million times more faithful to the actual design and flavor of the game itself, which leads us to the upstanding individuals who actually created this game. When I say individuals, I mean just that. Mega Man's core development consisted of only 6 people. Even for the late 80s, that is a tiny team. The group's MVP was Keiji Inafune, a recent university graduate who cut his teeth doing some design work on Capcom's other budding franchise, Street Fighter, which was a modest success in the arcades, but still hadn't found a foothold in any console manifestations. Its time would come, but Capcom wanted to establish its hold in the console market now. Inafune was a legend in how he made this happen. Not only did he design the box art, main characters, and enemies, he made the iconic Mega Man logo, created the instruction manual, and coded all of the sprite images into the game. It wasn't like more modern games, where every single person's tiny contribution was accounted for, including the 58-year-old janitor who changed the urinal cakes. But I guess that's still better than the games in the future, where the credit list will just be... oh yeah. How depressing is that? Moving on. The man did have help. His mentor, Akira Kitamura, was already in the process of designing Mega Man himself, as well as the templates for half of the Robot Masters. Complementing the characters were the scenic backgrounds designed by Naoya Tomita, and this style persisted through the rest of the NES entries, albeit with more sophisticated saturation, effects, and scrolling. Finally, in what would be the first of many celebrated gaming soundtracks, Manami Matsume scored the music for the inaugural entry. This woman is a legend and is still going strong today, publishing solo albums and everything. Video game music was still in its entry phase, and her work helped ensure a strong foundation to inspire other developers to not neglect the impact of music. What other series staples and firsts did the original Mega Man establish, and what elements have not been carried over? Let's tear open all the gameplay status quos that Mega Man initiated. It is incredible how solid of a blueprint the Blue Bomber's first game established. So many features were already fine-tuned early in this 1987 entry. Mega Man's pinpoint controls were simple and easy to understand. You always ran full speed, could jump with little air friction to hinder you if you wanted to change direction, and there was no crouch feature, so you had to make do with positioning and hopping in accordance with threats and projectiles to keep yourself safe. This was before the new skills began to increase your options, like the slick sliding move in Mega Man 3 and the famous charge-up Mega Buster from 4. Instead, you got used to our hero's initial maximum 3-shot jump burst from his arm cannon, his animations when climbing ladders, taking damage, and dying in an epic explosion of glowing orbs. Nobody died quite like Mega Man, especially back then. While graphically redesigned in Mega Man 2 and beyond, you were introduced to the small capsules that would recharge a portion of Mega Man's life, or weapon meters. In Wily's lair, you might also find the elusive Yashichi, which completely refills life and all of your weapon power. This was a Capcom Easter egg introduced in its first game, Vulgus, but it never reappeared in a Mega Man game again until the 8th entry. Also introduced were sections with constant respawning robots, which on one hand was extremely annoying, especially in areas where they just materialize exactly where you are trying to climb a long ladder. Damn it. Oh, get off me! Oh, god damn it! This is so ungodly aggravating. You also had climbing gauntlets, which require you to shoot threats on each side with a quick weapon, or else you're getting hit and falling all the way back down. But other times, you wanted these spawning sections to farm some much-needed life and ammo reserves in preparation for the boss at the end. Though, usually, you were just irritated by these constant score pellet drops. We'll talk more about these later. Even more specialized features, like those disappearing and reappearing blocks, manifested in several locations in the original, adding a slight amount of puzzle solving to mesh with a constant need for anticipation and quick reflexes. There's only 3 sections of these in the first edition, with just one of them being a bit infuriating, so at least Capcom restrained themselves here. Surprisingly, you remember those gates that clued you in that you were about to face the robot boss? Mega Man's OG entry is the only one which features hazards and enemies to contend with during your final push. Oh god damn, what? Well, that was cheap. Anyway, future games simply had 2 gates and a boring, lonely hallway to march through, which served no purpose. But in this game, you had to keep your reflexes sharp, or you'd be facing the final foe with less health and more anger bubbling up. It became very agitating, especially in stages like Elecman, with those intermittent currents on the ladders. They give you just barely enough time to get between them, and if you're struck and fall, you go right back down to the bottom and have to start all over again. Water isn't as prevalent in the original as it would be in later games, and it lacked the jumping boost underwater mechanic that would be followed through all of the sequels. Just another rare choice that defied what the rest of the games would become. The game flow, likewise, was barely touched throughout the NES span of the series. You run and gun through areas, both horizontally and vertically, dealing with robots of varying toughness and damage outputs, which the Legacy Collection very nicely details in its bonus menus. Some enemies are just there to be shot, but a few require a bit of strategy, placement, or timing of your blasts, and others will be tough to deal with without using different weapons you obtain from the bosses. I was surprised to see just how much thought was put into using different strategies with your weapons throughout the stages. Bomb Man's weapon is unwieldy and slow, but it's got a huge range, and you can use it to clear out annoying enemies that are blocking your path in narrow spaces. And it can also destroy shield enemies in one hit. You'll find those that are too small to shoot, but the electric beam makes short work of them, also being able to spread up and down to take out annoyances before you get there. Use Gutsman's strength to throw these blocks at multiple annoying flying enemies at once. Cutman's weapon is great for getting many weak foes out of the way simultaneously. Use Iceman's slasher beam to freeze up the fire pillars and use them as platforms. Or use this incredibly armored mech's jumping skills against him, freezing him in place before running underneath. Seriously, just get past these guys. Even if you have to take a hit, they take way too many shots and are the toughest regular enemies you'll encounter. Baddies come in so many forms. Fire robots attack from the flames in clusters, there's many types of annoying flying enemies which alter their movements based on your own, and come to think of it, the shield enemies will not drop their guard if you simply turbo shoot the Mega Buster. There was already some semblance of AI here, even in the first game. Other stationary cannons and sentry guns fire in predetermined patterns, making you either dispatch them strategically or cleverly adjust your movements to get through unscathed, which becomes more vital against flying foes that disperse multi-directional shots that you need to anticipate before running or jumping in certain directions. Others still guard rare items like 1-ups, or are just there to block your path and force you to plow through or waste your specialized ammo, which you'll want to keep for the main attractions that players remember the most. Unfortunately, the mid-boss enemies from later games, which put on quite a grand spectacle, were nowhere to be seen yet. Baby steps, sometimes. Speaking of lacking enemies, Mega Man only gives you half a dozen robot bosses, compared to the standard 8 of future games, which I think was the right call, as the original, while very tough, is still incredibly short. But Mega Man's key innovation was the stage select feature. Free choice on how to go about your quest? No platformer had delivered this much freedom before. Capcom didn't just put this in as a fun little perk either. It was vital to the rock, paper, scissors gimmick the programmers invested in early on in development. If you go through the game in the right order, you'll always have the tool for the job for each robotic master you encounter. This is important because Mega Man's standard cannon is much weaker than any of the robotic foe's tools. Look at that! It's almost like I never even hit him. My preferred list to keep things easy is to start with Bomb Man. His attacks are slow, and he actually takes damage from your shots. Use the bombs to blow up Gutsman, then use the rock toss to take out Cutsman. See? Rock beats scissors right here. Then Electman, Iceman, and finally Fireman, because ice is apparently super powered against anything made of fire. Anyway, the Robot Master's fights have a lot of variety in how they play out as well. Gutsman shakes the floor, paralyzing Mega Man before hucking those monstrous blocks at you. Electman is super fast and powerful, but he can be staggered with knockback from attacks. Iceman delivers projectiles in a tough cluster that's still just barely able to be dodged if you're quick enough. I'm obviously not. And Fireman is just a kamikaze freak of death that spams his flaming crap all over the place like it's being controlled by a toddler using a Game Genie code. My God! Make sure you have the ice beam before you deal with this guy. There's some cool one-of-a-kind bosses as well, like the submersible bubble boss that seems easy at first as you chuck rocks at it, until you run out and its speed goes haywire, making both attacking and defending super hard. And of course, the Yellow Devil, which required you to memorize a tricky pattern as it disassembles and reassembles itself, giving you a small window to hit its weak point. This was the bane of many kids' gaming experience in the late 80s. Super annoying, but when you get the hang of it, you laugh in its face. Well, you can laugh at its eye, at least. Dr. Wily himself began his trope of providing two huge forms of opposition between you and the happy ending, again forcing you to find the right weapon for the job, and also started this hilarious groveling animation. Wily didn't get a fancy castle backdrop or cinematic here. You're given no idea where his stages are located, but it still provides 4 extra tough levels of challenge, and immediately began the tradition of having to fight through the stage bosses one more time. Though here, it's actually spread throughout 2 stages with different hazards and platforming in between. I think the original honestly did this better than future entries. Before players get into the gameplay, it helps to have a strong hook, so let's examine how well the presentation was crafted in Mega Man's debut. Mega Man's look is simple and clean. Whoop, damn it, I'm sorry. Even in voice-over only videos I seem to go off on a tangent. But no, really, the established aesthetic is plastered all over the series, and it started here, right down to the boss intro animations and music. It doesn't have nearly the sophistication of later entries, like Mega Man 4's very ambitious introduction cutscenes, for example, but this was 1987. Things were basic in the 80s, and it worked. Deep colors and contrasts help create a bold, appealing environment which gamers, which were mainly children at this time, got drawn into as they hunted down Wily's evil robots. Even this early on, every stage had an original theme differentiating it from the next one. You've got the raging fire river in Fireman stage, construction site rock outcroppings in the background of Gutsman's arena, Iceman's home is obviously filled with many hues of blue and chilling ice colors, while Elecman's has the electricity motif all over the place, both in its hazards and general color scheme. If you compare this to something like Super Mario Bros., you see where Mega Man holds the upper hand. Legendary as it was, Mario Bros. Constantly reused the same 4 basic blueprints for its side-scrolling worlds, maybe changing the time of day to make it appear unique, but there wasn't a ton of variety. Despite its 32 levels compared to the 10 in Mega Man, Capcom's platformer had a lot more to look at and experience. If you can make a setting stand out, it helps to establish it in your nostalgic memory. If I asked you, what does Fireman stage in Mega Man look like? You'd probably be able to offer a few correct details, even if some were assumptions. Whereas if I asked, what does World 5-3 in Super Mario Bros. Have in it? I doubt you'd say, oh, that's the canopy jumping stage with bullet bills and those tricky jumps. Just like it's unlikely you'd say World 6-1 is a nighttime stage with a Lakitu that obsessively tries to murder Mario. Most of its worlds just mesh into the general theme, even though actually playing through them wasn't the case. Even Bowser encounters were only slightly modified. I got a whole video on that classic too, if you're interested. While limited, cool effects like the disappearing, reappearing Yellow Devil must have looked dope back in '87. I especially like the unfilled outlines of mega bosses after you've beaten them. They just sit there, still imposing and threatening. The animations of the boss attack weapons are also a highlight. Love the jagged outlines of the electrical beam, or the savage fury of the flame shield each time you output some heat. Mega Man's lack of polish does surface, however. You'd never know that this was even water without this feeble sound effect. There's no motion of waves or even a splash when you enter. Compare this to something like Mega Man 4, where you've got flowing waterfalls going in different directions, shimmering, rippling surfaces of water, and clearly tons more animations to convince you of the hazard that you're entering. Also, slow down. Oh man, it is unfortunately another tradition of the series, and it's prevalent all over here. Sometimes you feel like you're in slow motion with everything that's happening, and it can even get you killed. The NES just couldn't handle so many explosions, movement, and projectiles all at once. But hey, nothing's perfect. Special note on the ending sequence as well. Seeing the sky colors fade and change into darker shades as Mega Man returns home, that was quite ambitious for the time. It was likely one of the most impressive ending sequences to that point. I especially enjoy the Roll and Dr. Light cameos at the end. Oh, and did you know that Dr. Light and Dr. Wily were modeled after Santa Claus and Albert Einstein, respectively? Just more useless but entertaining tidbits on the two scientists who would ensure fans' enjoyment for decades. When it comes to Mega Man's music, I won't lie and say that this game's soundtrack holds up well against its contemporaries. There's nothing quite as catchy as the Snake Man theme in Mega Man 3, or as invigorating as the title screen's rocking introduction in Mega Man 2. But let's give credit where it's due. Matsume's score succeeds in not only bringing the required optimistic energy to fuel young players forward, but by taking advantage of the distinctions each robot boss design lends to the composition of each stage. Naturally, Fireman's Gauntlet is going to have an angrier, faster pace and tone. Compared to Iceman's stage, which appropriately sounds like it's far away on a distant land. Other standouts include the very hummable Cutman music. And the free-flowing light mood of Elecman stage, helping to propel you higher up this voltage tower of madness. It's good stuff, and it's helped by the imposing mood set before the boss encounters, evoking a real sense of dread. One big fail though, I gotta say. Dr. Wily's battle just reuses this theme. His entire entrance and massively intimidating battle mechs, they deserved a unique melody to match. So yeah, it's a shame. Luckily, the ending flourish makes you feel like you truly accomplished something, so it balances out. As far as the sound effects go, much like the controls and animations, it was all mostly complete right from the get-go. Weapon menu sounds, life recovery, Mega Man's jumping effects, his shooting sounds, the crunches of getting hit, dying, all those meaty explosions, the filling up of bosses' life meters before the conflict erupts. These were ingrained within a generation of us because of their consistency across all these assembly line entries of NES games. There are some cool effects, like Gutsman's earthquake making the music cut out. And some oddball ones, like what sounds like an out-of-control machine gun. Merely being the sound this mobile platform makes as it runs on its track. Weird. Overall, Mega Man's presentation was above average for the time period. Gameplay obviously is king, but it helps to have some great visual and audio incentives for new players to give it an honest shake. There was definitely more good than bad in this initial attempt at Capcom's platforming franchise, but was it all great? No. No, it wasn't. No, and we're not just talking about that. That doesn't, no. We've done that. Mega Man was a Herculean effort, especially given the small size and relative inexperience of its programmers. But there were definitely features that needed to be ironed out before the series reached its revered status as we know it today. The most basic issue is the game's length. You've got the 6 Robot Master stages, each of which can be completed in under 10 minutes, and then 4 more stages as you make your way closer to Dr. Wily. An average playthrough of Mega Man may take you about 2 hours. While this wasn't abysmal for the time, other games like Super Mario Bros., while honestly about the same length, had 8 worlds with 4 stages each, and it somehow felt more replayable, since you can choose to use warp zones or not. In Mega Man, once you figure out the optimal strategy when it comes to the order of the bosses, there's no real challenge. I guess you can use different weapons, or randomize the order to make it tougher, but especially in the original NES release, the boss battles were so difficult that this meant you had to either be hardcore or a glutton for punishment to challenge them with other weapons, or in any order other than the scripted one, especially since there weren't any energy tanks in the original that you could take with you to give you second life during a boss fight. No passwords either. This had to be done in one sitting. With only 6 Robot Masters, finding the correct order was much easier compared to the 8 of future games, as that's a lot more permutations and combinations introduced that force players to experiment with the progression a lot more. And remember, this was all before internet, where you could just look it up in a couple seconds. Mega Man's simplicity made it easy to jump into, but there is such a thing as too simple. You have absolutely no standout abilities. Mega Man can only run, jump, shoot, and climb ladders while shooting. That's it. You can't slide to make a quick dodge underneath an attack, or charge up a shot in preparation of the next wave of enemies. In future games, you'd have your robot dog rush to help you jump higher, avoid hazards, or provide a cool mode of transport in underwater stages. But here, the only bonus item available to you was this weird magnet beam. Oh yeah, let's talk about this thing actually. Ignoring the fact that it's weird and looks like a blue candy cane, the game locks this thing behind a bunch of boxes in Elecman stage, which you need Gutsman's power to get through. This not only unnecessarily punishes players who have played the game out of order, Capcom presents it as just a bonus hidden secret. It's just so out of place and random. But you need this thing. The dumbest part being that you can get to Dr. Wily's lair without it. But once you're there, you come to this screen, where you are completely helpless to progress forward. There's no way to jump, run, or climb to where you need to get to. You absolutely need the magnet beam, and more than once. Now, it is a cool item, and you can use it to help you in non-essential areas if you're feeling creative, and it can help you collect power-ups, but its implementation is so poor. It would also be game-breaking if you weren't allowed to backtrack, but luckily, you can go back to other stages after getting to Wily's castle, unlike future games. Although, also unlike future games, you still have to fight the boss at the end, which sucks and doesn't make any sense. Then there's the tropes that were popular in the early days of the NES. Mega Man is forced into falling downwards at certain points, and you're completely blind to the next screen, so you might just die for being unlucky. Oh, look at that, that's BS. You could say I should have been less lazy and took the latter in this case, but sometimes it's the total crapshoot. Like here. How is that fair? Just because I went in the wrong direction. I love how there's a 1-up on the other side, as if the game's laughing at me for choosing the wrong path, though I couldn't have had any idea one way or the other. Even ladders that you think might lead to hidden goodies just drop you onto a hazard. You'll sometimes die, and then you respawn with enemies immediately next to you, and you can't see them beforehand, so you take damage. Look at this! I fall and die, respawn in the most unfair manner possible. Oh, and I have to do the disappearing block jump puzzles again. The game is remorseless. You could lose a tough boss fight, and it'll just spawn you right into the middle of a war zone that took place before you even get to the boss. Tough luck, you schmuck. Enemies might spawn at random, refuse to take damage despite clearly getting shot, and they rarely give you the health or weapon power that you need. You just keep getting these scoring pellets, which do absolutely nothing other than being a score multiplier when you finish the stage. And the game doesn't give you any extra lives for reaching a certain number. It doesn't save the high score, but for some reason, Capcom really wanted to make sure you collected these endlessly. It's no wonder this feature was removed from every single game after. The risk-reward you face when trying to get power-ups is often just not worth the aggravation. Some are tucked away in cramped areas, where one false move can make you lose a life, either jumping to get to it, or when you try to leave with this low ceiling impeding your jump. Look at this! I'm trying to get this healing container, but by the time I'm done flailing around and getting peppered with abuse from all of these enemies, the healing doesn't even make up for the damage I received. My life is lower than when I entered the damn place! Yeah, I know, skill issue. But still, finally, the game's knockback mechanic was also a trope. Other NES games like Castlevania had you get knocked backwards upon hit, and unfortunately, there are definitely times when minor damage actually meant certain death. And if you were over a bottomless pit in the platforming sections, oh, you're gonna die. I'm out of patience. So let's wrap this up with some final thoughts before I let the flaws cloud my judgment. Mega Man established a wonderful blend of running, jumping, and gunning, and thanks to its success in Japan, became a powerhouse during the long-running NES era. It's simply fun to collect different weapons and use them against different enemies in unique situations. And finally getting a chance to face off against Dr. Wily was somehow very motivating, despite the lack of storytelling to show his true involvement. It wasn't perfect, There's unforgiving platforming sections, the score system was useless, the game was far too short, and the graphics didn't quite have that polish and levels of background layering and animations that the sequels would wow us with. Similarly, the soundtrack, while still good, didn't produce quite as many bangers. Even the rock, paper, scissors strategy system is flawed. Iceman is weak to electricity, but not fire, while Fireman can't handle ice? Okay. Still, it's amazing how much the initial entry got right, which barely needed to be altered at all. The sprawling level designs, going upwards, downwards, left and right, acquiring an ever-expanding arsenal that makes the game more fun the further you get into it, and a stimulating presentation which kept you glued to your TV, laughing at crazy robot designs while you caught yourself humming some addicting tunes. This was the expertly mixed cocktail of Mega Man, and it only needed small refinements in the future before being placed on an assembly line of NES success. Thanks so much for spending some time here at Gaming Introspection. We have a lot of gaming content, both retro and more modern, here on the channel. Please check some of it out if you enjoyed this, and like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. Good to see you, gamers. Take care.